Very good morning, everybody. I'm usually energetic, but I've torn a cruciate ligament in my right knee, so I'm kind of doing a balancing act today. I used to know about values, principles, and morals at a very young age, 16 years old, for a while at least. And I attended, at that young age, a wilderness leadership school in KwaZulu-Natal in the Umfolozi Game Reserve, an event that changed my life. I'll never forget our ranger, a youngster by the name of Colin Johnson, sat us under this acacia tree to get us out of the heat of the Zululand sun. And he spoke to us about values in nature. And one of the things he touched on was the importance of being an asset. Because in the natural system, if you're not an asset, you are by default a liability. We are not exempt from that law. He gave us a hard-boiled egg as part of our lunch ration. And he said, chaps, before you crack this on your head and eat it, pretend for a moment it's this finite planet of ours. If it is, then what part of the egg is this atmosphere, the thin blue film that we breathe in every day and take so for granted, we have for free? All day, every day. And we all said the shell. He cracked it on his head and he peeled that shell away. And you know, underneath that shell, there's a fine membrane. It's almost opaque. You can see through it nearly. And he held it to the light and said to us, okay, guys, this is the challenge. And it's my challenge to you today. What are you doing to be an asset to the planet? What are you doing to be an asset to the planet? And I thought long and hard on that. And I went home. And Langebaan Lagoon, this beautiful lagoon system, just north of Cape Town in the West Coast National Park, was under threat because the Sishen-Saldanha railway line terminal jetty was being built at the town of Saldanha into that lagoon. And it was going to be built as a solid concrete structure, solid wall. And West of the Wildlife and Environmental Society of South Africa were up in arms, and they said, no ways. No environmental impact assessment has been conducted. We need a lot of money. We needed 15,000 rand. This was now into 1975. We needed 15,000 rand to ensure that an EIA is comprehensively done over a year period. And I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I need 15 grand. And of course he said, look at me, pal. But he said, well, why do you need it? And I told him, and then he said, you know what? You've always had big dreams. Let's come up with a plan. And I said, well, I've got a plan. And the plan is to run a long distance. Because I believe that many small amounts, or many small things, in fact, can change the world and create a big amount. Tipping point. So I said, I'm going to run from Plettenberg Bay to Cape Town because my friend, his family have got a holiday home there, so we're going to run back to Cape Town from Pletten, the September school holidays, 1975. And all of our mates are going to chip in with their pocket money, and collectively we're going to raise the first. My dad said, fantastic. Now, do you know how far Plet is from Cape Town? And I said, I've got no idea. And you see, this is where my nightmare. And the reason it became the nightmare is because the reality is I'm an ordinary guy. I'd never run more than 15 kilometers in my entire life. And the compulsory school cross country was 8 kilometers. I came right near the back and I usually had to stop to vomit. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that if you're purpose-driven beyond your ego, you can achieve incredible things. Mind over matter. And I ran from Plet to Cape in those September school holidays, and we raised the money. And if you go to Langebaan today, to the town of Saldanha, you will see that jetty is constructed in a particular fashion to allow obstructed current flow to move through that lagoonal system, saving potentially those floral and faunal species that could have gone extinct. And then everything changed. My father was declared insolvent at a relatively young age. And I swore this would never, ever happen to me. It was a panic. And I forgot about living a life of significance, and I concentrated purely on financial success. And I made a lot of money at a relatively young age. And I must say publicly, a lot of that money I made was unethically made. I wore the Armani property paid for in Cape Town at a young age. I drove the new BMWs, and I thought I had all the friends in the world. And in 1984, what happened to my dad happened to me. I was declared insolvent. I lost everything. Not only of the material trappings, but my father, who'd been living with me after suffering his second stroke for 2 years, I had to move him into a frail care center where he died literally 2 weeks later. And then my fiancée left me a month after that. And shortly after that, I hitchhiked to a beautiful mountain range in the Western Cape called the Cedarburg, and I went there for one reason only, and that was to commit suicide. And I will never forget, ladies and gentlemen, the last night of my life. I was lying under this blaze of stars, the southern night sky that we are so blessed to have here in Africa. And I never felt so small, so absolutely insignificant, and so very alone. And something happened that night. And it's not a huge thing. Something small happened to me. A spotted eagle owl hooted. Woo, woo, the male. And I wept for the first time in 15 years. Something cracked in me. In fact, I howled like a baby on that dark night. And I realized the greatest courage I would ever need to muster in my life would be to go back home and live a life of purpose, a purpose-driven life. And I've never looked back. I've never looked back. When I was asked to run the entire length of the Great Wall of China, a world first that had never been done before, I wonder why. It's like Cape Town to Joburg, Joburg to Cape Town to Joburg, and then about a third back. A distance of some 4,218 kilometers, which I did with David Greer at the pace of a marathon a day for 98 days. We were told by Professor Tim Noakes it's physically impossible. But what Tim didn't know at the time, there was value to what I was doing. I was doing it for a purpose beyond only my ego. I'd chosen an organization called Operation Smile. And when we got to the end of the Great Wall of China, I knew that 84 children had received operations in Empangeni and KZN in September 2006 for the first time were smiling. And my son had gone there as a volunteer, and it changed his life because my son understood what I believe is the greatest gift that every human being on this planet has, and it's the gift of giving. What is it we have to give? What is it we have to put back? Instead of a culture of blame and entitlement, what can I do to make ethical choices, to be moral, to have strong values? Little Michelle, before her operation in Craddock, she had a very low self-esteem. She didn't love herself very much. 6 months later, the same girl. Changing lives one smile at a time is Operation Smile's strapline, and we can all do that. Likewise, when I was asked to represent South Africa and race to the South Pole, the centenary of Scott and Amundsen, so 100 years, 1911, 1912, when Scott and Amundsen went to the South Pole, I'm asked to represent South Africa. The problem is, I only skied for the very first time 8 weeks before the start. You know, I like being barefoot and baggies, board shorts and things like that. We were at minus 45 degrees Celsius, unassisted, man-hauling to the South Pole. And I can say, just like China, if it wasn't for those kids, I wouldn't have finished the great run of the Great Wall. Equally, I would not have finished this race to the South Pole. It again was purpose-driven. I'm very proudly the ambassador for my school, my village, my planet. And unless, when we talk about education, yes, we have the CAPS curriculum and so on, but it is so vital that in our schools we teach ethics. We teach what are values, personal values. What are your principles? And you know what? We actually know that, the little voice inside. No matter what your religion, whether you're Christian, agnostic, atheist, Jew, Muslim, that is your choice. But that little voice tells you right from wrong. And when we stop the helter-skelter and we listen to that voice, everything comes into perspective. Without good education, we cannot look after the villages, our towns, and there's no chance of healing this planet, which is in dire straits, by the way. But we can fix it. You know, there's that old acronym, the word team. Together, everyone achieves more. Going back to that group of kids that helped me reach my goal in running from Pet to Cape Town. And then people say there's no I in team. Well, do you see it? There is an I in team. And the I is the individual, the you. What is the asset that you bring to that team? What is the asset you bring to your community? The asset teachers are to children, and so on. And that individuality is so vital in this day and age. For me, it's three things. Respect yourself, which is self-love. Respect yourself. Know yourself. And I find that in the quiet moments I keep in the mountains. Be feeling good in my own skin. And then respecting others, because then you do. And respecting nature. those three respects. I have a campaign called DOT. And when I was presenting on 50/50, which I won't be doing this season, I've got my own show on National Geographic next year, which is going to be fantastic in America, criminal environmental crime investigation. But on 50/50, I would say our planet is a dot in the universe. We are just dots on our planet. But if each of us do one thing, positively, ethically, for this earth, we have to look after the diversity of life. It's not just about humans. Like that thin layer in the first slide you saw of the air that we breathe, we need to look after all life. We are dependent on it as the myriad species are dependent on us. So the app that is being launched next year is the DOT app. It's a free download for anyone in the world. It'll be around June. It'll be in the media. And it's like the Facebook for the planet. And a bit of a contentious statement I make here. It's not about people helping people, the app. It's about people helping planet. Because when people help planet, we help people anyway. So we need to think like the Native Americans used to think, generations ahead. So I'll conclude there, and I'll just leave you with that thought. What's your do one thing? Thank you very much.